Okay. Want to let you know that this session is being recorded. I also have with me Bridget Racy, who will be helping me with questions at the end of the presentation. We ask that you put your questions in the Q&A box as we go along, and we'll take care of them at the end. So let's get started. The licensed or approved adult daycare centers that are operated by public, private, nonprofit organizations and certain for-profit organizations may participate in CACFP if they serve persons 60 years of age or older, or chronically impaired disabled persons 18 years of age or older. To be eligible, a center must be non-residential and provide a community-based program. These programs should be structured, comprehensive, and provide health and social support services to enrolled participants. Facilities that simply provide social or rehabilitative services to adults do not qualify for participation in CACFP. So an independent center is an adult daycare center that enters into an agreement with the state agency to assume financial responsibility for the program's operation as an independent center, meaning there is only one of you and you're only going to operate as that one building. If an adult daycare center chooses to participate as an independent center, it must be willing and able to undertake the administrative responsibilities listed on the slide. Although there are certain kinds of information necessary for approval to participate in the program, applications and other forms are developed individually by each state agency. Application for participation for independent centers. Typically, state agencies request information about the public and nonprofit status, the type of center, licensing, planned meal service, administrative and food service budgets, eligibility status of enrolled participants, staffing pattern, and whether the state agency offers funds in advance of reimbursement payments to assist centers in meeting expenses while waiting for reimbursements. This is an agreement between the independent centers and the state agency. Permanent agreements. Each independent center must submit an online application and a permanent agreement to the state agency for approval. The permanent agreement specifies the operating procedures and practices for the service of free and reduced price meals. Approval for participation in the program cannot be granted unless this application and permanent agreement are approved by the state agency. All requested forms and information must be submitted to the state agency and must be signed by the person authorized to assume legal responsibility for the CACFP or the person to whom the authority has been delegated, such as a chairman of the board of directors or a public official. If a delegated person signs a form, a letter stating that this delegation of authority must be provided with the application. If an adult daycare center will not be assuming the administrative responsibilities for CACFP, either because it chooses not to or because it's not capable of doing so, it may participate in CACFP under a sponsoring organization. Adult day care centers that choose to work with sponsoring organizations apply to the program directly through the sponsoring organization. Contact information currently overseeing this participation of the adult daycare centers and CACFP may be obtained in contacting CACFP state agencies. A sponsoring organization assumes administrative and financial responsibility for the operation of CACFP within the adult daycare center participating in the program. The following describes the two main types of forms that will be needed to complete the sponsoring facilities and submit their sponsoring organizations. So the application to participate varies according to different states and sponsoring organizations, but will require the center to submit information used to assess its eligibility to participate in CACFP. This would include current licensing or approval status and information to demonstrate a for-profit center enrollment that meets the 25% requirement. A nonprofit does not need to meet the 25% requirement. Then you have the agreement between the sponsoring organization and the sponsored center. This outlines the responsibilities of the center and the sponsoring organizations. This agreement is permanent, but may be terminated by each party. Separate agreements are required for each sponsoring center. The state agency typically requests information about planned meal service, administrative and food service budgets, eligibility status of enrolled participants, staffing pattern, and advance payments. The management plan includes information about the training, reviewing the facility, and distributing reimbursements to the sponsored facility for the meals served. This agreement indicates the responsibility of the sponsor and the state agency. Agreement between the sponsoring organization and the centers. This agreement indicates the rights and responsibility of each sponsored center and its sponsoring organization. Separate agreements are required for each sponsored center. The state agency can provide a prototype for you to use by the sponsoring organization with its center, or will provide technical assistance and approval for one developed by the sponsoring organization. The permanent agreement, each sponsoring organization must submit a permanent agreement to the state agency for approval. A permanent agreement specifies the operation, procedures, and practices for the services of free and reduced meals. So CACFP is a supplemental nutrition program. The program is intended to help with your food costs. It may not cover all costs. Participating institutions operate the program under a contractual agreement with the state agency. Failure to maintain adequate records can result in legal action and payback of funds. The CACFP cafeteria-style feeding refers to a meal service method within the child and adult care food program where participants choose their food from a cafeteria line, essentially serving themselves pre-plated options for a traditional cafeteria setup. This style is considered pre-plated in a CACFP terms, meaning each meal component is already portioned out on the serving line. Family-style meal service. Family-style meal service is a type of meal service that allows participants to serve themselves from communicable patterns of food with assistance from supervising adults if needed. Family-style meal service provides some flexibility in the initial portion of the food that is selected by the participants. With family-style meal service, additional servings of each food are readily available at each table, and additional food can be selected by participants at any time. Serving meals family-style is option in CACFP and may be used in any CACFP settings. If the center chooses to serve meals family-style, they must comply with the following practices of 7 CFR 22620N. Each required meal component must be offered to each participant. However, a participant is not required to put the food on their plate or eat the food for the meal or the snack to be reimbursed. During the meal, it is the responsibility of the supervising adults to actively encourage each participant to serve themselves in full required portions of each meal component of the meal's pattern. Supervising adults may choose to serve any meal component directly to the participants. However, when supervising adults choose to serve any meal component, the full required minimum quantity must be provided to each participant. Adults also benefit from the meal served family style because it gives them more control over their serving sizes. Also, adults are generally accustomed to eating meals family style. Then the offer versus serve approach to menu planning and meal service that allows participants to decline some of the food offered in a reimbursable breakfast, lunch, or supper. The goal of offer versus serve is to reduce food waste and give participants some control in the choice of the meal selection. While still providing a nutritious meal, offer versus serve is only allowed in CACFP adult daycare and CACFP at-risk after-school settings for breakfast, lunch, and supper. Offer versus serve is not allowed at snack because there's only 2 required meal components during that service. As such, not enough food is offered to allow participants to decline some foods to ensure that the snack selected is nutritionally sufficient. If you are interested in one of these, please contact us to review all the different requirements needed. So before planning to incorporate offer versus serve in your adult daycare, there are 3 key terms you should know to ensure the meals are reimbursable. The food component. A food component is one of the 5 food categories that makes up a reimbursable meal. All meals must contain the minimum food components and in the minimum serving size for reimbursement. Then there's food items. The food item is a specific food offered within the food components, making up the reimbursable meal. For example, separate half-cup serving of broccoli and carrots are 2 food items that comprise of the vegetable component. Combination food. A combination food contains more than 1 food item from different food components that cannot be separated, such as soups, prepared sandwiches, burrito, and pizza. For example, a vegetable pizza contains 3 food items from 3 different food components: a serving of grains, the crust, a serving of vegetable toppings, and a serving of meat alternate, such as the cheese. One or more of the meal types must be served to adults and approved by the state agency in the center's application. You have breakfast, lunch, supper, or snack. Institutions and facilities may be approved to serve and claim up to 2 meals and 1 snack, or 2 snacks and 1 meal per day. Meal count, a daily meal count of meals served to participants by meal type. Menus, a dated list of food by meal type served to CACF participants. And then I've put here a resource of a memo code for optional best practices to further improve nutrition in the child and adult care food program, meal program. So this is a CACFP adult meal pattern. Institutions and facilities may be approved to serve and claim up to 2 meals and 1 snack per meal. This table shows the required food components for each meal type and the minimum required servings for adults. All the required food components identified in this table must be offered with each meal, except for the snack. Only 2 of the 4 food components are necessary for snacks. I will break this down in the next couple of slides for you. So your breakfast, you have a serving of milk, your serving of vegetable and or fruit, and 2 servings of bread alternative, and 4, which equals 4 servings. Under offer versus serve, participants may decline only 1 of the 4 servings offered. Also, meat alternatives may be served in place of the entire grains component at breakfast, a maximum of only 3 times per week. Then you have lunch, which is a serving of milk, 2 servings of vegetables and or fruits, 2 servings of bread or bread alternate, and 2 servings of meat alternate, which would equal 6 servings. Under offer versus serve, participants may decline up to 2 of the 6 servings offered. Supper, 2 servings of vegetables, 2 servings bread alternative, 1 serving of meat alternative, and equals 5 servings. Under, again, the offer versus serve, participants may decline of 2 of the 5 servings. You will see a serving of milk was not listed, and that's because it's optional at supper. Low sugar yogurt may be substituted for fluid milk. Flavored milk can be served to adults. It must be fat-free skim milk. Can be pre-mixed or made by additional flavored straws, syrups, powders to unflavored milk. Snack, because snack meal pattern only contains 2 food items, again, offer for serve is not for snacks. So then you have snacks. Because the snack meal pattern only contains 2 food items, offer versus serve is not available. However, you have 5 components that you can choose from, which is the fluid milk, the meat alternative, the vegetables, the fruits, and the grains. And then always remember that only one of the 2 components may be a beverage. So you can't have a milk and 100% fruit juice. It has to be one component of a beverage and then one of the other components. On this slide, you'll see some of the meat alternatives that may be used in place of meat, such as yogurt, tofu, lean meats, peanut butter, nut butters, cheese, and spreads, not for product though. Poultry, fish, eggs, cooked dry beans or peas, and there's a lot more. I just wanted to give you a good idea. Fruits may be fresh, frozen, dried, canned, packed in water, 100% fruit juice or light syrup, and or pasteurized. Full strength 100% fruit juice. Examples of credible fruits can be found in the food buying group for the child nutrition program. These links are here. You can't use them right now, but when you're on the recorded slides, you can. And then I at the end of the presentation, I have all these links under the resources as well. The vegetable component includes fresh vegetables, frozen vegetables, canned vegetables, dried vegetables, and pasteurized 100% full-strength fruit vegetable juice. Beans, peas, and lentils credit as either a vegetable or meat alternative, but only one serving cannot credit as both components in the same meal. So you can't have some beans as a vegetable and a meat alternative. You're going to do the beans as a vegetable, then you would have to have another different meat alternative for the different serving. To increase flexibility in your menu planning, centers and may choose to serve 2 vegetables at lunch and supper rather than a serving of vegetable and a serving of fruit. This means that the fruit component at lunch and supper may be substituted by an additional vegetable. The substituted vegetable must be at least the same serving size as the fruit component it replaced. And best practice is recommend serving whole fruits, fresh, frozen, canned, and dried more often than juice, making at least one of the 2 required snack components of a vegetable or a fruit, and providing at least 1 serving per week of dark green vegetables, reds, beans, lentils, starchy vegetables, and other vegetables. That's more in NSLP, but it's not a bad practice for all of us to eat that way. I also want to mention that when you're talking about serving 2 vegetables, they have to be 2 completely different vegetables, such as broccoli and corn. A little bit about whole grains. Grains are a required component at breakfast, lunch, and supper meals in CACFP. Grains are not required for snack. At breakfast, CACFP institutions and facilities may serve meat alternatives in the place of the entire grain component up to 3 times per week, as I already mentioned. Credible grains include whole grains, enriched grains, fortified ready-to-eat cereals, bran, and germ. The CACFP meal pattern requires at least 1 serving of grains per day, must be whole grain rich for the adults. A whole grain rich product has a grain content that is between 50 and 100% whole grain, with any remaining grains being enriched. While there is no minimum whole grain rich requirement for grains served to infants which we don't need to really talk about here. But we encourage it to serve to infants as well. So this is a way that you can kind of swap out the grains. So, instead of choosing white rice, you want brown rice. You don't want white bread. You want 100% whole wheat bread, 100% whole grain top, cereals with fruit if you want. Instead of grits, do oatmeal. Instead of pasta, do whole wheat pasta. And cookies, well, we don't do cookies at all, but you can do 100% whole grain crackers. So now we're going to talk about the ounce equivalent on the next slide. Under the updated meal pattern program, operators will be moving from credited grains by serving to credited grains by ounce equivalents. So 1 ounce equivalent equals 16 grams of grains. The CACFP grain ounce equivalents are important for ensuring proper nutrition in meals. Here are some key points. Ounce equivalents indicates the amount of grain in a portion of the food. I have placed the link here for the USDA using ounce equivalents for grains in CACFP. This helps you to understand how to go from the grams to the ounces. Grains are an important part of our meal in CACFP to make sure adults are getting enough grains in the meals and the snacks. Required amounts for the grains components are listed in the meal pattern as ounce equivalents. Ounce equivalents tell you how much amount of grain is in the portion of food. There will likely be some changes to your menu planning in this process. Now, most of us have already gone to the ounce equivalent, so but if you still have questions about that, feel free to contact any one of us at the office. And then I mentioned the food buying guide. This is the link to it. You can get this on your phone. There's an app for the phone now as well. I have it on my phone. I have it on the computer. I have it on the tablet because there's times I need to look up things to make sure that if something's credible or not. And then please make sure that you are putting in the whole grain rich product name, such as WGR whole grain rich roll. List a milk type, such as 1%. The types of the cereals need to be listed on the menu as well. So here we have a menu. This is like a weekly cycle menu. You'll notice the days of the week at the top of the components are listed, on the left. And then they have the dates. Instead of the mixed fruit, centers should write the specific fruit they plan to serve. So if you are serving oranges or apples that day, unless you're doing like a fruit, if it is mixed fruit, I mean, that's possible too. But maybe list, maybe the 3 main components in that mixed fruit on there. Let's see. The menu includes the brand of the cereal being served instead of just writing whole grain cereal. So you need to list that. So they have wheat checks on here. They have there was another one on here as well. But like wheat checks, and then they got whole grain toast, and then they have oatmeal, whole grain English muffins. So you want to make sure that it's being spelled out. Things like bunny sticks or magic meat listed here do not explain exactly what the dish includes. If institutions wish to give their meals names like this, they should also include the ingredients at the bottom of the posted menu. There are some other items on the menu that should include, you need to include the month, the day, and the year of the menu. The type of milk being served is listed here. You don't have to list it on every single menu portion. You could also list it on the side that 100% of fat-free milk is served every day at breakfast and lunch. So you could do that as well. And then the menu should also have the civil rights non-discrimination statement posted somewhere on the menu. So right down here, we have this institution as an equal opportunity provider or employer. That shouldn't say an employer. It should just say this institution an equal opportunity provider. And then best practice would also to be list the serving sizes of each item being included. So, you could do half a cup, a quarter of a cup, one roll, so that's just a best practice, but this is something we'll be looking at when we go out and reviewing your menus, or if we're asking to see your menus. Your menus need to be posted so they can be seen by everybody that's walking into the facility. It would be nice if you have a website that you guys use, post it there. You want the public to be able to see the menu. So when you have combination foods that you purchase, you must either have a CN label, which is child nutrition label, or product formulation statement. If homemade, then you need the recipe that states what's in it, serving size, and what is credible. Best practice would be to complete a standardized recipe or get it from USDA, ICN, etc. So, if you're looking for, a type of soup or stew or, a meat sauce, you can go on to USDA or the Institution Child Nutrition. They have recipes already set up, and they tell you how many they serve and what each serving's for. That would be the best practice if you have combination meals like this. So, child nutrition labels are required for all commercially processed combination meal dish products. As a best practice, institutions should have a list by product how much food is required for each age group served. Examples of commercial prepared products that would be like chicken nuggets, fish sticks, pizza, all coming in from either the store or, your large BJ's or even your Cisco or Costa or PFG trucks. So looking at the example here, we have breaded fish nuggets, where the food is being claimed for both the grain and the meat alternative components. The CN label states that the meal contribution and the serving size of the count can be found on the outside packaging. They are not the same as the nutrition label. For items purchased in bulk, the CN label may be on the outer package. The CN label on the product does not necessarily mean that the food provides an entire serving of the meal component. So for this example, 5 fish nuggets provides 2-ounce equivalent of the meat alternative required and 1 serving of the grain component. So please note that for this combination dish, no more than 3 components can be counted towards one combination dish. The Child Nutrition Label Program is a voluntary federal labeling program for child nutrition programs. The child nutrition label on the product communicates how the product contributes to the child nutrition program meal pattern requirements. Child nutrition labeled products provide child nutrition program operators with a warranty against audit claims when the product is prepared according to the manufacturer instructions. The program requires an evaluation of the product's formulation to determine its contribution towards CN meal pattern requirements. It allows manufacturers to state this contribution on their labels. The existence of a CN label on a product provides child nutrition program operators with the guarantee that the product contributes to the meal pattern requirements as printed on the product labels. Now, if you go to the grocery store, you're not going to find many of these child nutrition labels. However, if you are ordering from a specific, or you're getting the fish sticks from Gordon's Fish Sticks, you may be able to go onto their website, and they may be able to provide you with the CN label, or what we call the product formulation statement, which is right here. This one's called the manufacturer analysis sheet. So if it's containing multiple components and does not, CN label, organizations can call the manufacturer and ask for an analysis sheet of the product. This analysis sheet will literally tell you the serving sizes, whether it's credible and whether it's not credible. Often they'll ask for the UPC number to help provide you with the child nutrition information. So try to have that on hand on the package in front of you as well. And again, you can either call or a lot of times there's the websites too. And they are used to getting this for the schools, for the National School Lunch Program. So it won't be unusual when you do ask them for this. They should know what this is talking about. So don't be afraid to do that. And this is stuff that you have to keep on hand for when we come out to do an administrative review. That way it matches your menu and it matches your receipts. So everything aligns up. So here's a copy of our product, a production record, which the state agency required all CACFP sponsors and independent sites to use. We started this in October. The first link is where the YouTube video training on the production records are. So if you have not seen that, Bridget did a great job on explaining how to fill out the production records. If you still have questions or are unable to attend the buffet, be sure to go right onto our website, the YouTube, and get that link. Also, on the second side here is our website. It brings you right to our website. And if you scroll down to meal production, you'll see all the forms, the instructions, and the documents that you want to use to help you out. So we actually have one that's just for adults. And you don't have to use the child nutrition one. I mean, the child and adult care child one. We have one specific to adults and what your serving should be. So menus must be posted, as I said, in a prominent location so participants and guardians of the participants are aware of the food program being offered at the center. These menus must be kept on file by the center and, if applicable, the sponsor level. Menus are required to include the month, day, and the year of the meals, as I talked about before. And then if you have anything on your menu that you need to change for the day, you want to cross it off on your menu that everybody is seeing and put what you are serving. So that's what you really, really need to do. And apparently I have the production record here twice. So sorry about that. All right, so centers may claim for up to 2 meals and a snack per day or 2 snacks and a meal. The basic requirements needed for claiming meals include, but are not limited to, following the CACFP meal pattern, keeping all necessary special dietary medical statement forms on file, taking and keeping on file the point of service meal counts, maintaining menus and all cost documentation, and maintaining CN labels and, if applicable, any meal production records and recipes. So please note the link on this page. This will bring you right to our CACFP website again, and the forms are there. Daily attendance rosters or sign-in sheets or other methods with state approval, which will result in accurate recording of daily attendance. You also need daily point of service meal counts by type, breakfast, lunch, supper, or snacks, served to the center participants. The point of service means at the time that the meal is being served, somebody should be checking off that that adult person has received a meal. Again, there's no set way on how you do this. Just note that on the roster, you cannot use the words free, reduced, or paid. However, you could number it 1, 2, 3, or have different colors for the free, reduced, and paid. You just don't want to have overt identification with anybody else to be able to see it, that a person is qualified as free, reduced, or paid. These forms must be used for you to use to enter your claims for the payments each month. Please remember that you must keep all your documentations for 3 years plus the current. If you're using a computer system to keep your records, it must have a backup system to ensure that you will not lose those documentations. Meals served to programmed adults working in the institution's food service, non-program adults, and to other non-enrolled persons must be recorded as well. These meals may not be included in the CACFP meal counts for reimbursement. However, it can be counted for the cost documentation purposes. Unacceptable meal counting method includes counts based on number of trays or plates available at the left of the meal service, counts taken at the beginning of the service line without checking to see if the meals served were credible, counts based on the number of children or adults in the center, counts based on the number of tickets distributed, counts based on the number of vended meals received, counts based on previous meal counts, and claiming the same number of meals every day, referring to as block claiming. Those are all unacceptable meal counts. So record keeping. When documenting costs for the Child and Adult Care Food Program, be sure to maintain receipts and/or documentation. Documentation may include invoices for proof of payment. Costs should be documented for income to the program from all sources, all submitted reimbursement claims, all program payments received from the state agency, all food costs, including milk receipts, and operating and administrative costs, which includes the time records and employees performing CACFP-related tasks if they are being charged to CACFP. For more information on the cost documentation, allowable and unallowable costs, and operating versus administrative costs, please refer to the Virginia, please refer to the CACFP budget training that we will be recording hopefully this month. Additionally, please refer to the FNS financial instructions, which is 796-2 revision 4. And then, this link also gives you the guidance for the management plans and the budgets. The required records. By keeping accurate records, institutions can ensure that they receive all reimbursement payments to which they are entitled. This section provides information about the types of records that must be kept to justify reimbursement claims. Institutions must establish procedures for collecting and maintaining all program records required by USDA and the state agencies. By having these and having them in some kind of orderly fashion will definitely help when it comes to administrative review and us coming in. Even if we were to come in for an unannounced visit, we should be able to have this stuff readily available to us. So monitoring. Under the Child and Adult Care Food Program, monitoring and training requirements for adults include annual training on CACFP, meal pattern, points of service, meal count procedures, record keeping, reimbursement systems, claiming submissions, civil rights, and specific requirements for sponsoring organizations, depending on the role in the monitoring sites. All staff involved in meal service should receive training annually, including new employee at a site or within the sponsoring organizations. Providers must follow the terms of the provider program agreement. When a provider fails to meet the terms of the provider program agreement, the provider is placed on a corrective action plan to correct the situation permanently. In the corrective action plan, also known as the CAP, the sponsor clearly states the problem and requirements that the provider must meet. The CAP return will be by the provider must identify what will be done to be corrected with the problem, Who will be responsible for making sure that the deficiency is corrected? When will it be done and how often? And documentation and records that will be submitted to demonstrate compliance with the timeframes for submitting information when applicable. So this includes also when you guys are monitoring as a sponsor independent centers. You don't have to worry about that part. But if you are an adult center under a under a sponsoring organization, they need to come out and review you 3 times a year. The independent centers, is not that they don't get reviewed. They get reviewed by the state agency at least every 3 years, if not sooner. And then again, we have our site review forms and our pre-operational site review forms if you were to bring on somebody new. These review forms have changed, so please look at them. Yes, they are a few more pages than you're used to, but they really describe what you should be looking at. And, you know, when we come out, we want to see that, you know, you fill these forms out. And if you have found something that's incorrect, do a corrective action on it. We don't want to just see that you're checking it off, that everything's fine, and nothing needs to be done, and then we come out and find all the other errors. So, mandatory training attendance at training is attendance is. Let me start over. Mandatory training attendance needs to be done by key staff as defined by the state agency is mandatory. We don't want to forget about the civil rights as well. Please use the link on the slide to see all the requirements for civil rights. We do have a training on our website that goes over the civil rights that you need at this time. And that's pretty much, I mean, I know I went a little longer than normal, but so on this slide, you'll see all the resources that I was talking about. Of course, if I missed anything, we have plenty more. And I really want to thank you for coming. And then let's see if anybody has any questions or that they would like to ask.